and welcome to the all-new, all-different #1 comics podcast. I am your co-host, Dan. Sitting across from me is Bob. Say hello, Bob.
Hello, Bob.
This is episode number 25. That's right. We are a quarter century. I don't know what's 100. Not in years, but in other things. We're a quarter year old. I don't know. Whatever.
No. Well, yeah, we're a quarter.
Sure.
I guess
We're a quarter.
I don't know what anniversary that is. If it's silver.
Happy anniversary. All I can say. Here on the all new, all different #1 comics podcast.
Anyway.
Yeah, we talk about a brand new, newly released comic book, issue #1 that came out this very week. We break down the story beats as well as art, give it kind of a review, and tell you if we think that you should move on to issue #2. We also talk a little bit of comic book and related news, as well as what's new in comic book shops this and next week. And this week, we'll be taking a deep dive into the all-new #1.
From Boom Studios' Creed: The Next Round, based on the movie series Creed.
That's right, kids. We're talking... Wait, what's the series called? I forgot the original... Rocky.
The Rocky Balboa series.
We're in the Rocky franchise. Here we are at Boom Studios' new #1, Creed: The Next Round. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. And we are back with episode number 25 of the all-new, all-different #1 comics podcast. Bob, let's talk about comic book news. This week, it was announced that everyone's favorite character, Spider-Boy, is going to get his own ongoing series, which begins, I believe, in October, but it could be November. I can't remember the exact date. But we've got a Spider-Boy ongoing series coming, and there is quite a bit of fan backlash about this.
Fans are gonna fan.
Yeah, well, of course, fans backlash on everything.
Yes.
But the general consensus, the big gripe that's out there is the fact that there's so many Spider characters, and why not explore some of those instead of just creating this new one, giving him an ongoing and all of that.
They can say that about any Spider character ever created.
Yeah, sure. I think a lot of times people forget that Marvel and DC a lot of times try miniseries with unknown characters, with secondary characters, and try to build them up and everything. It just doesn't work. So I think, the biggest problem you're going to have as a fan, unfortunately, is that Marvel's got their Avengers, they got their Spider-Man, they got their Wolverine. Those are their characters. Those are the characters that everybody wants to read about. DC has their Batman, their Batman, their Batman, and their Batman, and those are the characters that everybody wants to read about.
Wait a minute, do they have anybody else?
Also, there's a book called Detective Comics.
Oh, okay.
It stars Batman, but...
oh, okay.
Yeah.
The Brave and the Bold with Batman.
Oh, wait, Batman's in that title, isn't he? Yeah, sure. There's also...
I'm sensing a pattern here.
I'm not sure, but yeah. People forget, a lot of times that's sad to say that's what people want. That's why they go back to these big two publishers for those recognizable characters. And I don't know, whenever we tried to do like an Aunt May 4-part miniseries, people weren't interested in it. You know?
It reminds me of, what was it, right after the Dark Metal event. Mm-hmm. After the... Mountain appeared. What was it? Challenger's Mountain appeared in Gotham.
Yeah.
And those new superheroes were created.
Yep.
DC actually did standalones for those characters. Mm-hmm. And what's happened with them since?
Yeah. Nobody has any clue who they are. Now, not saying that, they don't try. Of course, we talked about City Boy a couple of weeks ago. That's a new DC character that's out. We're always talking #1 issues here, so a lot of times we're getting new characters and everything. But I mean, do you really see City Boy? Do you see a lot of longevity for that character?
Not every character is going to be like an Avengers where you can, do multiple volumes that run for 30, 40 issues. Not every character is going to do that.
Yeah.
When you boil it down to it, comics is, of course, like everything, about making money.
Yeah, they gotta sell. It's gotta sell.
And if they, see that, okay, this character's book isn't exactly doing that great, and unfortunately, as much as that character may be beloved, they're gonna get the axe.
And on the other side of that, everybody is buying up these Spider-Man books that introduce Spider-Boy, and then the subsequent books with his origin and explaining more about his world and everything. So why would they not capitalize on that?
Exactly.
Why wouldn't they? Marvel has tried to put out a Spider-Man noir book. They've done different things. They do Edge of Spider-Verse, but if you're gonna point all your money towards a new character in a Spider-Man book, well then guess what? They're gonna create a miniseries based on that character. So I get the backlash, but at the same time I get Marvel's point of view, and my point of view is with Bob's there. Look, it's just a byproduct of the game. It's gonna happen. So I don't know. I mean, you always speak with your dollars with comic books, with movies, with music, with any form of entertainment like that. If you're against it, then don't buy the book. If enough people don't buy the book, then it'll get canceled. That's how it works.
That happened with the character of Spider-Man himself. That was just a throwaway book,
exactly,
done by Stan Lee, who was going to quit anyway. And they saw, oh my God, this book is taking off.
Exactly, it was the last ditch effort. Is that
exactly.
What it's called? Yeah. A lot of people forget that kind of thing. But yeah, you speak with your wallet. You buy or you don't buy, and then you are directly contributing to whether that exists anymore or not. So that's how you do that. Bob, let's talk about a trailer that you and I both watched. Yeah,
let's.
This isn't directly comic book related, although there have been comic book adaptations, especially graphic novel.
So that does make it a comic book.
Yeah, so it's
property.
Adjacent at least, so that's why we squeezed it in here. But Bob and I really just wanted an opportunity to talk about the Five Nights at Freddy's trailer. I'm going to go ahead with this, and I know that you feel the same way because we discussed it beforehand. I already don't like this story as it is. I think it's cheap and it's stupid to me personally. I hate to come down that hard on something that somebody created or whatever, but it's basically like somebody was kind of like what if there was a killing that took place inside of Chuck E. Cheese or something. I mean, it's more complex than that. Whatever, but I already just am not a huge fan of the material there. This was a game.
I never played the game, and I'm sure you never played the game.
No, I've not.
But from just what I've seen, it's to me, I look at it and it's like, what is the appeal of this?
Yeah, and then you got to remember also we've already had that knockoff Willy's Wonderland movie that was loosely kind of the same thing, right? It was like...
Was that the Nick Cage?
Yeah, the Nick Cage, like, animatronic, things killing people.
But then everybody wanted to see that because of Nick Cage.
Exactly. But I don't know who this is for. I mean, of course, it's for people younger than us that grew up with this.
It's for horror fans. I mean, it's made by Blumhouse Studios.
Well, yeah, maybe horror fans, but this is like camp on a whole nother level.
Oh, yes.
This is very, very campy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no... I think everything we're going to see we saw in the trailer probably. I'm familiar with the story at least, and the story is that somebody gets hired as a security guard for this place, and then the animatronic kind of like animals on the stage begin killing people. They kill the guy or something, whatever. The trailer makes it more that he brings his daughter with him, and she becomes like, I don't know, they want to make her one of them and take her body or soul or whatever.
Right.
So I think it's a little twisted from the storyline of the game or the original material, unless, there's some lore out there that I'm not aware of, maybe like a part 3 or 4 or something of the game that maybe introduces some elements like that. But I don't know. I mean, you say it's for horror fans. I don't even think it's for that. I think it's for the kids that grew up, that were born in the, I don't know, 2005 range or something like that. The people that are like in their early teens now, I think it's for them because they grew up with the game. It was a little creepy for them, and then now that they've got a movie out of it. I don't think that people that are watching like The Conjuring and stuff like that really want to go out and see this. I'm just not seeing the same audience there for it.
I'm a Conjuring fan, and I watched the trailer, and already I knew before the trailer, I'm not going to see this because this is not I don't see how a movie based on a game, which again I call just a mind-numbing experience. I just did not see how a movie made about it would be good. I could be wrong. It could be one of those rare trailers that shows the boring parts in it. But judging by that trailer, it's kind of like, I know what this movie is about.
Yeah, it's like you already know everything that's going to happen. What difference does it make? So that's our thoughts on that. Bob, the biggest news of the week, of course, is that the DCU has cast its Superman, Clark Kent, and Lois Lane. This was big news to everybody out there in the comic book community.
Actually came out of nowhere very quickly.
Yeah, it really did, just out of nowhere. And that casting is David, Bob, you'll have to help me with the name, Cornyswet?
I'm gonna say you're right. It's Cornsweet.
We'll go with that name. And Rachel, Bros something.
Brosnahan.
Brosnahan. Okay, great. To play Clark Kent and Lois Lane, and I'm gonna take this from comicbookmovie.com. So, excuse me for stealing here, but after months of speculation, it's finally official. David Cornyswet will play Superman, and Rachel Brosnahan is set to star as Lois Lane in the DC Studios' Superman Legacy. Deadline, along with other Hollywood trades, broke the news today, this coming yesterday, that the two actors will headline the upcoming reboot, which is written and directed by James Gunn. They were among those who tested for the roles in full costume before the filmmaker and DC Studios co-CEO Peter Safran. We may never know how many other actors were in the mix, but these two have definitely beaten a lot of other impressive names to get these coveted characters. Now Gunn has found his leads. He's expected to shift focus to casting Lex Luthor and supporting characters such as Jimmy Olsen and the members of the Authority. Of course, we know that they're bringing the Authority into this as well. Superman Legacy is expected to set the tone for the new DCU, and a lot is riding on the movie being a success. That won't be easy after a pretty rotten few years for the DCEU, but the Man of Steel does feel safe in the Guardians of the Galaxy's hands. I'm going to stop reading there because I disagree with that. But
we all know your opinion on James Gunn taking over.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I really like the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. The 3 that I've seen, excluding part 3, but the 2 and then the special. And I liked Slither, and that's the only James Gunn projects that I'm a fan of. I don't like any of his other work. So I think that, given a team and given the right characters and the right actors in those roles, yes, James Gunn can do really cool things. I'm not sure about Superman for him.
Right.
That's always going to be what I think until the movie comes out and I think something differently. I'm not sure.
Right.
We'll just have to see how that goes. I do want to talk about the two actors, though, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but this is the lead's first big leading role. He has been in Pearl and We Own This City, 2 movies I haven't seen. I've heard a lot of good things about Pearl, not necessarily about his performance, maybe just the lead actress, but yeah, he was in those 2 movies. And the actress who is playing Lois Lane, who again I can't, Brosnahan. Okay, she has been in The Marvelous Miss Maisel, which is a show that I watched. It's by Amy Sherman Palladino, the showrunner of Gilmore Girls, so of course I watched it because, that's the greatest show ever made. But yeah, Marvelous Miss Maisel, a really cool show. She's also won an Emmy for that, and she also starred in House of Cards and The Blacklist. So I mean, I understand her casting. I'm not really understanding his, but maybe they don't want a big name attached. Maybe they want to kind of build this. I'm not too sure here. So I don't know if this does anything for you, Bob. I'm not sure, but...
Well, I mean, and you're talking about big name. I mean, as I remember, Brandon Routh wasn't exactly a big name when he got cast. I mean, of course, Henry Cavill was, a bigger name when he got cast. And I'm not sure about Christopher Reeve, what he did before he got cast, but... And of course, we know Nicolas Cage. If it would have happened, he was definitely a big name.
Yeah, he was a big hit.
I mean, one of my favorite movies of all time, Star Wars. I mean, none of those actors were big names when they got cast, so it can work.
Oh yeah, it can absolutely work. You don't need a name association, but
no.
I think my issue
with the character like Superman, you might. Just because the character's so big.
I just hope he's got the right charisma to be able to play Clark Kent.
Right.
I think that's really what it's going to take. James Gunn, I will say, although I'm not the hugest fan of his screenplays and his writing, he's good at casting. He's got a good eye really for knowing who to put in what role and having those actors grow into the character and everything. So this is probably going to be a win. I mean, I can't see why this wouldn't be. But again, we're talking about release dates. This is supposed to be released July 11th, 2025. So I don't know. I mean, people crank out scripts for movies and they film movies and edit them a lot quicker than they used to. But I just to know that we're just casting now and this is supposed to come out in 2 years, really kind of freaks me out.
Right.
It just doesn't seem like there would be a lot of thought put into it.
That does seem kind of quick for what's supposed to be a big blockbuster film.
And like they said in this article here, this is supposed to... I mean, I can't say that, the stakes in this article match people's expectations. I think that even if Superman does fail... the general movie-going audience that was going to see all these DC movies are still going to give it another shot. Right. It's not like they have to make it in one movie, but for somebody like me, if I go out and see this and it's terrible, I'm not going to go see the next DC project. I just, I'm not going to invest any more time in it because I'm already, been burned by them so many times.
Well, and it's like I said, you were talking about this. I mean, this isn't the... end all be all of the new DCU. But this is Superman we're talking about.
Yeah.
This is DC's, well, besides Batman. But this is probably tied with Batman as DC's tentpole character.
Yeah.
The character that they hang their hats on.
Well, and I would even say, I think a lot more rides on this than Batman because... Look, we've already seen DC's made it very clear, it doesn't matter. Whatever you do with Batman doesn't matter. There's Elseworld, there's all this stuff. They'll just cast somebody else as Batman 5 minutes later and make another movie. It doesn't matter. And there's different things they can do, too, because they can go into other pockets. They can say it's more of a, well, now it's Bruce Wayne when he's 40 or whatever. I mean, they can do different stuff with Batman. Superman, you're going to have to tell that origin story. You're going to have to kind of line all that up right. So I don't know. I will say my biggest fear is that July 11th, 2025 release date versus anything else. I think that's just a very short amount of time to get this done in and make it good.
Right.
But again, with the casting, I'm sure James Gunn, probably did well there. He usually does do great with the casting. So And I know a lot of people really want to work with him, and when they work with him, they really want to stay, working with him. And he brings a lot of actors back and everything. So good for them. But we'll have to see. And we are back with the all-new, all-different number one comics podcast. Bob, this is episode number 25. I just can't believe it. We've done this 25 times now. That's just crazy to me.
Yes, it does feel like just yesterday that we started this journey together.
It really does. Very cool. So I'm glad you've stuck in it for at least 25 episodes. I'm hoping for another 25 more, but I guess we'll see. But yeah.
As long as they keep making number ones.
We're stuck here. We got to do it as long as there's number ones. I agree.
Yes.
I agree. Let's talk about some of the new comic books that came out this week in comic book shops. We, of course, had I wouldn't say a huge week, but it was a pretty good
medium
week.
size.
Yeah, a pretty nice week. From Dark Horse, we had Hellboy and the BPRD 1957 Fearful Symmetry #1.
That's a title.
Yeah, and a really cool looking book. It looks like it's a lot of fun. I like to poke into that Hellboy universe every now and again. I can't follow it religiously because it's too much for me, but
every once in a while you just like to familiarize yourself.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. The artwork is always amazing,
Yep.
and it's just really cool. So if you're a huge Hellboy fan, or if you just want to poke in, or if you just want to grab a #1 in the Hellboy universe, probably a good week to do that. Also from Dark Horse, we had The Oddly Pedestrian Life of Christopher Chaos. Again, a title there. This was dreamed up by James Tynion IV, but somebody else fleshed it out, so it was kind of a collaborative process there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know exactly what the solicit said. I don't have it in front of me, but it sounded like a cool book, and I'm excited to read that one. Over to Marvel, we had Thor issue 35, and that's got the Origin of Hela. Such a cool cover on that one, and then you have the Origin of Hela, so a great pickup. We had Avengers Beyond issue 4, and Bob, I love this one because it's got the first appearance of the bootleg Avengers. So, you never know.
I'm actually looking forward to reading.
You might... 20 years from now, you might see the bootleg Avengers movie, and then you'll have the first appearance right there in Avengers Beyond issue number 4. Yeah, I'm excited to see that too. I think it sounds really cool. Sounds fun. We wrapped up the Carnage Omega storyline the Carnage Reigns storyline with Omega #1, the conclusion there of Carnage Reigns. And then we've got She-Hulk issue number 14 with the Origin of Scoundrel. Star Wars Dr. Aphra issue number 33 with the first appearance of Star Weird. That doesn't sound like a character's name in the Star Wars universe, but I guess that's what they're going with. And I neglected to pick up this copy, so I'm gonna have to go back.
I mean, some of the names in the Star Wars lore. I mean, it fits.
It tracks. Okay, it tracks for you. All right,
it fits. I gotta say, there have been some really funky and cheesy names throughout the years in Star Wars.
Yeah, I guess you're right. We had X-Men Before the Fall, Heralds of the Apocalypse #1 with the Origin of I won't be able to say it, but the other island.
Racco.
Racco. Okay, good. Glad you could say it. Scout Comics actually delivered this week. They've got like 4 or 5 books out. I can't believe it. I picked up every single one of them, actually. We had Dust #1, Side Quest #1, The Quarry #1, Trance #1, and The Traveler's Guide to Florga is what I'm going to say. I'm not sure what that name is.
I wonder if that's anything like The Hitchhiker's Guide.
I don't know, but it looked like a very interesting book. But yeah, they had some books out this week, a lot of #1s. Good time to pick up some Scout books. Yeah, I picked up every single one of them, so I was happy to see that. We also had from Boom Studios Power Rangers Unlimited, the Coinless #1. This takes place in an alternate universe where the Power Rangers lose their coins or maybe never had them. I can't remember exactly what the solicit said. Sounded cool.
Power Rangers loves their alternate universes the past few years.
Oh yeah, well I mean, there's a lot to play with there. So
that is true. That is true.
We also had Bryn Mawr #1 from IDW, a book that looks really, really cool and creepy. Excited to check that one out. We're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we're going to get into Creed the Next Round, #1. We are back with episode number 25 of the all-new, all-different #1 Comics podcast. Bob, we are going to talk about Boom Studios' new #1. Takes place in the Rocky universe, in the Creed universe, in the universe of people boxing and making movies about it. This is Creed the Next Round, #1. Had to remember the title. Let's get into Boom Studios' synopsis of the book. 10 years after the events of the blockbuster Creed Part 3, Amara Creed is on her own path, stepping outside her father Adonis Creed's shadow and training like there's no tomorrow. But when her division opponents no longer present a challenge, Amara's drive will have her following in her father's footsteps, going underground. She'll also need the perfect trainer, but perfection comes with tangled strings attached. Superstar writers LaToya Morgan and Jay Jameson. Wow. Artist Wilton Santos, alongside Creed 3 director and star Michael B. Jordan, bring Creed to comics in a story no fan of the franchise can afford to miss.
And this fan did not.
That's right. Bob didn't miss it. I haven't watched a Rocky movie since I was 3, and here we are. Let's talk about these creators for a second. Now, I'm not going to go into depth about these creators because, again, we had 2 writers together. We had, I'm just going to touch on them really quick. But LaToya Morgan, of course, I don't know if you remember the book Dark Blood. That's where I was first introduced to LaToya Morgan. A really, really good book. Just an outstanding book. I really like that book a lot. So the second that I saw that LaToya Morgan was doing this, I was very excited to see that writing. Also did some stuff over at Zenescope. Grimm Fairy Tales Presents Goddess Inc., as well as Robin Hood, that's right, Robin with a Y, The Hunt, and Grimm Tales of Terror. And then Jay Jameson. The only credit that I saw at all was Earth Prime, Superman, and Lois. So looks like, maybe they got their start just directly in DC. DC threw them in and let them play with Superman, which is quite a big get for to not have any other credits in comics. But that's definitely all I saw. The illustrator of this book, Wilton Santos, has done a lot. There's a lot of credits there. Some of the most notable ones for me are Breakout from Dark Horse, a really, really cool comic. Did a bunch of stuff over at Marvel, including Excalibur, and then Marvel Voices X-Men, also X of Swords, Star Wars Dr. Aphra, Star Wars Age of the Republic, the Obi-Wan one-shot, the Padme one-shot, the Anakin Skywalker one-shot. So very... pretty acclaimed artist there. Pretty big illustrator. And like I said, LaToya Morgan on Dark Blood, just outstanding. Really, really good. I want to get into my synopsis of the book that I wrote up. And you'll have to bear with me here because, again, not being super familiar with the source material, I might have some hiccups along the way, so please be forgiving, as you guys always are with my pronunciations and things. Creed the Next Round opens with Amara Creed in a boxing match up against Rebecca Gonzalez, introducing herself and winning the fight. Her father and trainer tells her that she's playing too much and leaving herself open, while her mom weighs in on the opposition of that. We learn Adonis has gotten a little bit soft after retiring. And after training with her dad, Amara learns about an underground fight, and then she enters along with her best friend. We cut to Adonis and his wife at a business meeting, and then back to Amara's fight at the Deep End, which is a drained community pool being used as an underground boxing ring. She fights some dude who's never named and wins. Adonis shows up just as Amara begins to fight Jamie Pierce, Moses Pierce's granddaughter, whomever that is, and brings Amira home. Amira explains to her father that she needs to fight better fighters to get better and see how good she is. She's sent to her room, but then leaves to go find her aunt, Artemis Creed, and asks her to train her. And that's my synopsis. Again, being a little unfamiliar with these characters, I'm not sure who Moses Pierce is. I don't know who Artemis Creed is, other than obviously her aunt. I'm familiar enough to understand that Adonis is her father, and he was the focal point of all of these Creed movies.
Right.
Now, can I ask this to you or anybody out there? Does he have a daughter in the movies? Because this does take place in the future. I think it says 2033 is when this book takes place. So,
Right.
Obviously 10 years on. She looks to be older than 10. So, maybe in the movies she's a little kid or something.
And I actually said this before we started the podcast. I've seen the first two Creed movies.
Oh, okay,
I
that's
have
right. You haven't
not seen the third one.
Mm-hmm.
I am most likely going to buy it off of Amazon in the next couple of days and watch it. Being as how the first two Creed movies went, I wouldn't be surprised if they introduced a daughter in the third one. But again, I have not seen the third one yet, so I am not 100% sure.
That's right, kids. You heard it here first. Bob loves giving his money to Jeff Bezos, so do what you will with that. But just joking. Of course, we all love giving him our money. That's all we can do. But yeah, let's talk about this book then. Let's talk about the story. Let's talk about the story beats. Again, being unfamiliar. This one kind of gave me the same setup vibes as the Street Fighter versus TMNT thing. Now, they're very different books, of course,
right.
Exploring very different things. But maybe it was the fighting. I'm not sure. Something just gave me kind of the same setup, the same kind of beats. But I do appreciate the beats in this book. I think they work well. I think introducing these characters to somebody like me who's not familiar with them, it works well. I like the fact that they go along with Amara's storyline and then interweave the parent storyline into it. I will say just right off the top, I don't think the parent storyline works. It's one part that I'm not a huge fan of here, but I like the way that it's interweaved, and I think if they had a different narrative going on with what they were doing, I'd be a little more into it. But as far as beats go, I think it works very well. I think opening with that match, having that inner monologue that's kind of explained to us at the expedition dump at the beginning, and then kind of showing how she wants to be involved in better fights and everything against better opponents, and then her going to the underground and everything, and then seeking out her aunt towards the end. I think all of that works well. I like the way that the beats work here in the story, and I think it's very cohesive. What thoughts do you have on the story beats, Bob?
You said it exactly. I think the story beats work well. I mean, with the fight, we get introduced to Adonis's daughter, Amara, and then we see who she's fighting, which I'm glad they put that explanation in, who she is and what she is, and then it goes into a little bit of conflict in the Creed family, and it does interweave with the meeting, but I will say for me that really didn't mess up the beats at all. I mean, even with the interweaving of the story, the beats still kind of flowed for me.
Now, can I ask you this? And you may not know. I know again you haven't seen the third movie yet,
right.
But does he have like some kind of empire, like financial empire, or whatever, like merchandising empire, or whatever it is in this book that he's trying to sell in the movies as well? Or is that like an afterthought to like after he's retired?
Not in the first two movies I've seen, but considering, he's supposed to, at least in the first two movies, again, I haven't seen the third one, so I'm not entirely sure. At least in the first two movies, he's supposed to be built up as, one of the best boxers, in the world. and his father is always portrayed in the Rocky universe as like the Muhammad Ali of boxers, arguably the greatest of all time.
Yep.
And then you got the fact that he's associated with Rocky Balboa. So I mean, any sports agency or sports enterprise is going to want to attach themselves to that. I mean, it'd be like Nike, attaching themselves to Michael Jordan. I mean, Nike was Nike, but then they got attached to Michael Jordan. It's like Nike is this, grand empire.
Yeah, so definitely makes sense, even if it is just here in the book.
Right.
And I did wonder, again, you won't have much thoughts on this because you haven't seen the third movie yet, but knowing that Michael B. Jordan was heavily involved in this, at least overseeing the story, I don't think he has any direct writing credit for this,
right.
But it makes me wonder if it's maybe a spec script or something that was in. Maybe he wanted to go along with it. Maybe this is how it's being presented or whatever. Maybe this is how it's being sold to a studio. Maybe something smaller like a Netflix series or something. I mean, it really could be because this is very cinematic. I'll give it that.
It is. It could be episodic. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's condensed in a way that you see a lot of adaptations condensed. But I would say, it might be something like that. I can't imagine they're just trying to explore a comic book universe and that's it. So let's talk about the narrative then. Again, for me, being completely ignorant to to Creed and mostly Rocky and all of that, I don't know really how this narrative works, but I think that just strictly in a comic book form and reading it as a comic, the narrative works well here. It works for each one of these characters as well as a whole. I think that the narrative storytelling works. I think there is a good amount of exposition dumps here in it. But I think that you need it.
Yeah, in a book like this with multiple characters like we get. I mean, you do need some type of explanation, which is going to come in the form of exposition dumps.
Yeah, I think when I first cracked this book open and I started reading it and we had all of it at the front end, I was a little scared. And again, not knowing that, I wasn't familiar with who wrote the book until I associated it with Dark Blood and everything. I was a little scared this was going to be kind of like a cheap just movie tie-in, and that's really all it was going to be. We moved past that and got it more into the character of Amira, and I could appreciate it more. But yeah, towards the front end, the exposition really threw me off a little, and it was a little heavy, but I was definitely able to get past it. So that is, something that I would like to put out there for anybody wondering if they should pick that up or not. Maybe get through the first 3 or 4 pages and you'll be okay. Let's talk about the dialogue then. Bob, you'll be able to answer this one much better than me. Did they find the voices of these characters here? Did you feel like you could read Adonis's parts in Michael B. Jordan's voice? Did everybody
I really
line
did.
up? Okay, good.
I mean, the only thing you're talking about voices. Unfortunately, his girlfriend, when they introduced her, she did have a hearing problem.
Yes,
which ultimately got worse as they explain in the book. And again, not having seen the third movie, it would make sense that the daughter unfortunately inherited her mother's problem.
Yeah, and you see here they're using sign language. I'm not sure, I don't know enough about sign language to say what form they're using, but it does say instead of the abbreviation for American Sign Language, I think it says BASL. Yeah, BASL, and I'm not sure what the B stands for, but yes, they are representing that here in the book, which I think is really cool. That's good. We need all different kinds of representation in books for everything, so I do appreciate that. I will say this. I don't know the characters well enough to know if this is their voices. I think everybody's voice is distinguished enough here, and it works. It's a little tropey for me that the dad, Adonis, really kind of pulls out that whole thing of, well, this is what
soon,
I
it's
did,
too dangerous.
but you can't do it. I really don't like that. I think we could have introduced like a different kind of problem for her to have versus just her dad saying he doesn't want her to do the same stuff that he did. I think it's a little cliched, and I will say this book is way too dialogue heavy for what it is. I felt like I was reading it for 25 minutes, and that's just a little long on a comic book of this size. It's not that it doesn't work. The dialogue does work. It's just, I think they could have visually told a little bit more of the story and a little less on the dialogue. And we all already know, for me, the second I'm seeing 40 word balloons per page, it's a little too much. But I think I think as somebody unfamiliar with the franchise, they nailed the voices.
Oh, yes.
I like Amira's voice. I like what she says. I think that I love the use of sign language here. I think it's pretty innovative the way that they did it and everything. But yeah, that's my critique on the dialogue.
Yes, and they definitely nailed Creed's Adonis's voice. I mean, I was reading this comic. Every time they put speech bubble to Adonis, it was like, that's exactly how he would have said it.
Yeah, and probably a lot of that comes with him overseeing the project or having some kind of investment in it to some extent. But yeah, I agree with being completely removed from knowing anything about the characters, never seeing the movie or anything like that. They all had unique voices. I was interested in them. I would say I was the least interested in the character of Adonis. Out of everybody throughout the book, I was heavily invested in the daughter. I think they did a good job bringing her as the focal point of this book. I really liked the mom. I liked the secondary characters. I loved her best friend. I loved the other people she was fighting and everything. I wasn't super interested in him. Just something about him seemed very, very tropey to me. I understand that that's a new direction, and it's not something that comes from the movies. Because he's still an active boxer in those movies, and he's probably not retired and raising a daughter and everything. But
see, and you're talking about the trope, and I did explain this a little bit.
Yeah.
Before we started recording the podcast, the whole Adonis, being afraid that his daughter's not ready and that she's going to get hurt. That's actually. That is pretty much the relationship that the character of Rocky has when he first meets Adonis, and he first starts boxing. It's kind of like, okay, you're doing good, but you're not ready for this yet. So, and that is a trope, that's been in the Rocky and Creed universe.
Sure, and that's what I mean by saying that it's a trope. It's not that it's a problem with the storytelling. I think the storytelling works. I think that it's just, I'd like to see these creative people flex a little bit more of their creative muscle. Can you still tell this story and not have the dad be a cliche? Could you go in a different direction? Now, I'm not suggesting that one of my ideas is better than theirs, but I do think that maybe you make the dad more on her side. Maybe both the parents are on her side and they want her to go out and push herself further and fight better opponents and everything and watch her excel. But maybe she's got some other problems. Maybe, I don't know, maybe she shoots heroin or something for all I know. But something besides the same trope over and over again is what I'd like to see. Because I think what they had here is a pretty compelling story. And again, for me to be able to identify with these characters right off the bat and really love the daughter here and think that all the secondary characters work really well and everything, they really have something to work with. I just don't want to see those cliches in there. I don't want to see the archetype things. I can't remember exactly the title of the book now, but we had a problem a couple of weeks ago with one of the books that was just archetype after archetype of these empty shells of characters.
Oh.
And
that was the Planet of the Apes.
No, it was it was the horror book where they go to the island, they have to assemble the team and everything. I can't think of the name of it now.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I know.
Yeah, but that's always going to be my problem. That's just not something that I want to see. I want to see stuff a little bit more fleshed out than that. Hunt You to the End was the name of that book. But yes, and they flesh out most of these characters. Most everybody else is pretty fleshed out. I don't know if it's because they're male characters, because the only ones that aren't fleshed out, I feel, are the father here, and then the male fighter that she fights at the end. So maybe they just didn't see any need to flesh out those male characters. I'm not too sure what the direction was going for with that, but that is a big opportunity that I saw in this book. Let's talk about the world building then. And again, we're comparing it to a movie franchise. So we have two different perspectives here. We have my perspective where I have no knowledge of the movie franchise. And then we have Bob's where he has a pretty vast knowledge. So I will say, from not having any knowledge of the franchise, the world building really works. I don't feel like anything's set in an area that I need to know a lot about, or that they have to do a lot of exposition on. It's just, it's pretty straightforward. They're at home. They're at the boxing match. They're at the underground match. They're over at the aunt's house, and they're at school. So, and then at the business meeting. So yeah, the world really works here. It works well. We see San Francisco. We see all of that. We see the valley. I like the world building here. I think that they did a really good job fleshing out this world. And then from your perspective, Bob, where you have a little bit more knowledge, I don't know if any of this harkens back to any of the movies, but
not particularly. I mean, you like you said, you don't need to be a fan of the series to like the world building. I mean, the only thing that strikes a chord is Delphi Gym, which is an established gym in the Creed universe. But besides that, I don't even really know the locations. So
good. So it's maybe just a callback to something, and that works for a little bit of fan service, but also works well for somebody who is completely unfamiliar like me. So good. Let's move over to the art then. Bob, the art on this book, the characters. Again, we have that artist who, Wilton Santos, really brings their A game to this, in my opinion. These characters look great. Michael B. Jordan looks just like Michael B. Jordan, so that's good. But yeah, everybody looks good. I like the character designs. I think that this artist really knows how to play in that field of sequential art and really do a wonderful job with these characters. I'm a huge fan of the artwork here. I think it looks wonderful.
Yeah, and especially because of what the book is, a boxing book, to me the art is going to be the standout part.
Yep.
Just because of the sport of boxing.
Yeah, sure.
You have the fast pace, fast motion, you have the punches being thrown, the arms extended, you have the musculatures of the arms. So again, the art to me has to be the standout.
Yep.
In a book like this.
Yeah, and it works very well. These characters just really, I think he nails it there. How about the locations then? There's a good mix here of the locations and those kind of solid backgrounds and those close-ups and everything. Again, this is really cinematic. It looks, I'm not going to say photoreal, but the locations are very cinematic.
It looks like it could be taken from a small screen.
Exactly. I think that the locations work very, very well. The art in the locations looks wonderful. We're looking at San Francisco with Adonis and his wife getting off the plane there. Just looks wonderful. That plane in the background, the dark gray sky with the birds and the clouds in it and everything. And then flash over to Amirat's school and the trees in the background and everything. It all works very well. I think the locations look great. I think they look wonderful. So how about the backgrounds then? How about some of those areas where we're looking more at the backgrounds and the locations, some of the areas in the school and the gym, all of that, at the fight and the deep end, which I will give them credit for that. That's a pretty clever name for an emptied out pool. I like it.
It is.
It's cool.
It is.
I would love to go hang out at a place called the Deep End, if I was in high school or whatever. So how do you feel about these backgrounds? We've got a lot of colors mashed into the backgrounds here. It's a pretty bright, vibrant book.
Yeah, and I mean, this artist, Wilton Santos, he did what I love for a comic book. He put detail in the background.
Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of detail. It's not really just solid colors. Even when you got action shots and everything.
Except for a few panels where it's like action shots.
Yep, and they look good and they work wonderful for what they are. To go into the colors, we have a separate colorist on this book, DJ Chavez or something. I guess I should probably get that right if I'm going to credit them, but DJ Chavez. Okay, I was maybe close. I don't know. DJ Chavez. Wonderful. The colors really pop here. The colors A+ on the colors. They look really good. Again, I can't really find anything bad to say about this art. The art works really, really well. I like it. Almost has a shift at some points, and I don't know if you get this or not, or if you agree. But sometimes when they're fighting, or especially whenever she goes to the deep end, she's fighting the guy and everything. It looks kind of manga-ish. Like it looks almost. I'm getting that tone from it.
I was thinking the same thing. I mean, we're on a page right now where there's an act, which I mean, the action shots, by the way, are beautiful.
Yeah,
in this
they look
book.
great. Yeah.
I mean, you're seeing all the muscles and the arms and everything, but we do have one shot where Amara is giving a straight jab, and the gentleman that she's fighting, who I don't know,
the unnamed
guy, he's going down, and I'm not going to say manga per se, but especially that particular shot right there, it did give me like a little, like a maybe Street Fighter-esque kind of look, which I mean isn't a bad thing. But I mean, when you compare that to just, a shot of Adonis and his wife, in the car, it does, kind of look like it was two different styles. I mean, maybe that was intentional to show the difference, a compare and contrast between the two different worlds.
Yep.
Which, I mean, if it was just an intentional choice, then bravo.
Yeah, I agree. I actually really like it though. I really like it. I think it's I hate to sound cliche myself, but I think it's like a breath of fresh air. The art really works throughout the entire book. But again, being bored with the scene with the parents, I get a little bored with whatever they have going on. I don't think it's interesting at all to know that they're doing these business deals or whatever. It just isn't important to me, to the context of this book in any way. And then we flash over to her fighting, and it's just this whole new style, and it's fresh and it's vibrant and everything. I really like it. I think it's a cool contrast, and yeah, I think that they did it well. So of course we'll get over to the most important question about this book. Will you be continuing on to issue number 2? Bob, I'll let you go first.
Oh, I will. I mean, even if I weren't a fan of the movie, I mean, this, and like I expressed to you earlier, this book did what a number 1 issue is supposed to do.
Yeah.
It's supposed to introduce you to the characters, and it's supposed to, hook you toward the end, which this book did. So, and on top of that, being just a Creed fan, I am 100% continuing with this book.
Yeah, I think this one's going to be a little harder of a sell for me, but right. I will say at the top, yeah, I do want to continue on to issue number 2. I don't think that it's going to be like a guarantee for me to want to move on to issue number 3 after that. I think they're really going to have to do something with the parents to make me care. But I do want to see what's going to happen next. And the biggest thing I can say about that is the daughter character here, Amira. I'm really interested in her development and what happens with her and her training with her aunt and her going underground and doing all these things and becoming a better fighter and all of that. I'm much less interested to see what I think is going to happen, and what I think is going to happen is her dad's going to find out, get mad, whatever. I don't want to see more of that because I know that story. I feel like that's played out, and I don't care. I don't care what he's got going on with his business empire. But The other half of the book I'm heavily invested in and I like a lot. So if they can focus a little bit more on that, or hell, maybe even throw me like a curveball in there and I think it's going one way and then it goes somewhere else, then I'll be very excited. But if we're gonna get more of this cliched stuff with the dad and the mom, I'm gonna lose interest. But for right now, it's definitely a move on to issue number 2 book for me. So I'll definitely be checking out issue number 2. So that's a win from me and Bob here. So good pick, Bob. And we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back in just a minute. Hello, all new, all different nation, and welcome back to episode number 24 of the all new, all different #1 comics podcast. We, of course, have a very, very awesome creator interview lined up for you guys today. And today we're talking to Soo Lee, who is a comic book creator and illustrator living in New York City. Hello, Sue. How are you? Welcome on the show. Thank you so much for taking out the time to talk to us.
Hi, thanks so much for having me on. It's good to be here. I'm okay. It's very hot in New York right now.
Yeah, well, likewise. Well, we're in Florida, so understood.
Oh
It's
God, never mind.
like 500 degrees, and I don't know how you measure humidity, but whatever the highest humidity is, that's what's happening. So,
Oh, I've been to Florida.
I'm
Yeah, I've been
sorry.
to Florida. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, agreed. Bad in more ways than one, but yeah, absolutely. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on. For anybody who's not familiar with Sue's work, you just don't know you are because she's
Oh,
currently
thank you.
writing and illustrating Disney villains Maleficent. So, which is such a cool book. But I know everybody's out there checking that out already. So, Sue is, as I said, living in New York, and you're currently living in New York. As you said.
Yes.
So, okay, cool. And you attended High School of Art and Design, and also you've worked on a lot of like various. You've done a lot of various cover art, different stuff for Valiant, Ani, Dynamite, of course, Aftershock. You've worked on editorial illustrations and covers for Analog Sci-Fi magazine and Sierra magazine. You are also the co-host of the Spill Your Guts podcast we were just talking about off air, which is such a cool podcast. I really, really strongly encourage everybody out there listening to check that podcast out. It's very cool. Um, Definitely want to know how that came about. How did you get into that? Like, did you have any experience podcasting before, or?
Um, so I have zero real professional experience doing podcasts, but I've dipped my toes in wanting to. Like I briefly, very briefly did something with a friend, and we just got so busy we just couldn't like keep up with it. And that was like years ago,
Mhm.
and it was like a nice idea. It was very generic, as in like I interview my friends who are artists
Mhm.
and or writers, and we just talk about silly things, or like our personal lives, like to try to humanize ourselves. And I guess like that's been in my brain after we stopped doing that for a while. And then I started doing my Twitch streams
Mhm.
during the pandemic because I had zero jobs, right? So I was like,
Yeah,
well,
understood.
I have all the time in the world. This seems to be cool. That's what the kids are doing, right? So I started like a drink all with my friends over Twitch, and it is very modest. There's only like 10 viewers at a time, but the people who do watch, like, really enjoy it. I love the close like everyone's in on the joke. Everyone watching is on the joke because you've
Mhm.
been watching it for like weeks throughout like 2 years, right?
Yep.
2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Um and then I got more comfortable talking on camera and you know being more okay with hearing my voice and stuff like that because I had
Mhm.
to it was like hard for me. And then I was like, you know what, I kind of want to do a podcast again. And Sweeney and I have been friends for a bit, and we just like talk on and off about like, our personal stuff and someone I can really confide in. And so we were like, you know what? Like, I'm pretty sure we're not the only ones who have like, stuff we're going through. Mental health is a big issue, or, if not an issue, like I think should be normalized, right?
Yep. Mhm.
So I was like, okay, let's, maybe we should talk about this out loud, and if people can relate, great, or, and then like the humanizing part comes in where, people are really nasty online, right? And it's not just for artists, it's for like
An
any
understatement. Yep.
celebrity, right?
Mhm.
Like streamers, celebrities, e-celebs, or whatever, right? Because our proximity is so close to the fans, they think
Hmm.
that we belong to them. And
Yep.
so I'm like, okay, let's like talk a little bit about how we're actually feeling. So about art, but it's mostly like, how we are as
Hmm.
people and our guests are, so you get a little bit into like, our mindsets and like, the ugly side of freelancing
Hmm.
sometimes.
Hmm.
So, and
Yeah.
then I mean, it doesn't have like a huge following or anything, but it's, again, everyone who does listen is like very nice about it and it relates. And that's what we want. I just want people to like, you're not alone kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think as a creator of any type of content, I mean that's what you always want. You want a loyal fan base versus just a large one. Of course, people that interact, people that have questions, people that are an engaged audience. That's the most important thing. And I can definitely tell by your podcast the things that you guys talk about. It's very personal to you, obviously.
Hmm.
In the episode that I was just listening to yesterday, the one with Sway, you guys obviously get into being a person of color and a creator of comic books at the same time, and the how that is for you guys, and of course being just like a white male, it's really eye-opening to hear those kinds of things, because you don't realize a lot of times you have ignorant people like me or Bob who just don't realize our privilege, like we have no clue. And then we get to hear those stories from creators like you guys, and it's really eye-opening. And of course we want to be able to do whatever we can to support and prop that up and everything, but we'll never understand that struggle, unfortunately. And it I mean, of course it sucks that anybody has to go through that. It sucks that people just aren't accepted for whatever they're doing, their work or whatever. And maybe race, gender, any of those things have to be a part of it. Just kind of sucks. So it's really cool that you guys are able to talk about that. Really cool that you guys are able to talk about mental health right now, like you said, normalizing your feelings and mental health and everything. Of course, we know that there's kind of that hashtag going around right now that comics broke me, and that's a
Oh
that's a thing.
God,
So
yeah.
yeah, that's a thing we're hearing more and more about. And again, uh, somebody like me or Bob, we're involved this much in the comic book community, but we're not in the industry, so we don't understand the struggle of things like that, or how it is to try to break into the business of comics or work in the business of comics for X amount of years or whatever, and just have to go through that. So really cool. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to lead with that. Right from the top, a really, really cool podcast, very personal stuff, very eye-opening stuff that I've heard on there, and I really like it a lot. And I strongly, strongly recommend and suggest that anybody who's listening to this absolutely go out there and listen to Spill Your Guts if you haven't already, because it's really awesome. So
Thank you. I really appreciate the feedback, by the way. I get a
yeah,
lot of like, people of color and friends who are like, "Oh, I understand," right? But
uh-huh.
it's nice to hear what other people say, outside of my, demographic saying, "Oh, yes, like it is eye-opening." Okay,
Mhm.
good. I'm glad. Thank you so much. I
Yeah,
appreciate
yeah.
it.
No, and I can understand. I mean, at least from that angle, to that's what you're going for. That's what you went out there and everything, and to know you're succeeding at that is really, really a cool thing. So yeah, I really suggest that to anybody. Let's get into your art a little bit. Let's talk about,
Sure.
of course, we're going to talk about Maleficent, but we'll get into that in a minute. Let's just go like back. I know this will be super super basic, so you have to excuse me for it. But like, how did you get into art? At what age? Like, what caused you to get into illustrating, all of that stuff? Like, tell us the story, please. We'd love to hear it.
There's really no big story. I
Mhm.
just realized like I'm very interested in a lot of things, but
Mhm.
I'm only really good at one thing. Like people are like, "Oh, I really wish I could draw." I was like, "Yeah, well, I really wish I was like X, Y, and Z. I wish I was good at math, or I wish I was like a really good at science, 'cause this is all I'm good at, right? Like this is it." It's like if I have nothing else, I'd be in trouble,
Hey.
So it's the one thing that I was like, I enjoy this and I want to
Mhm.
hone it. And I love my mom. She like nurtured me and was like, go pursue what you want. And like I had like art all in my life. Went to, after schools and like, tutoring, like,
Mhm.
on the cheap, stuff like that, and just
Yeah.
really, playing with the art field. And I didn't realize I was going to be a comic artist, or like was interested until I went to high school. Um, I had a teacher, Mr. Borcon. I don't know, shout out. He's not there anymore, but like he was like a really great illustrator himself. And we had a comics class, and he wasn't a comics class, but he would like encourage everyone to do it. And so
Oh,
that was the
cool.
first time I was, I read comics, I read manga, stuff like that. So
Hmm.
I was like, okay, I want to try, and I like drew it, and I was like, this is fun. Like, I think I want to keep doing this, right? Like, I love reading comics. I think I can draw. I was really bad at drawing, by the way. I suck at drawing.
I'm
So
sure.
I was
Well,
like,
compared to me and
yeah.
Bob, I'm sure.
No, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna try it out. I sucked for a long time, and then now I feel like I'm getting my I'm getting used to it. No, but like it's not really anything like an aha moment. It's just like, yeah, I like this. I've been around art all my life. Like I went to art school, high school, like
Hmm. Hmm.
that's all I know. So I figured, you know, this is it. Like this is what I want to do. And I really enjoy comics, It's
Hmm.
like I could have been an illustrator, but there's something about comics that I really love. I'm really passionate. And then when I went to SVA, I had a class with Klaus Janson. Almost everyone knows this now, but like I had Klaus Janson for cartooning, and it was like boot camp, right?
Hmm.
So I was like, well, I like comics, I want to draw it, but then like his class was where I was like, no, I want to be serious about this. It's
Hmm.
like you could either be disencouraged if it was too hard or like, yeah, whatever. But I was like, no, I really like the idea of comics, And it's not just like fun. I get to draw superheroes. Like I want to tell a story, Like
Hmm.
there's a math to drawing comics. That's how I put it, Because like there's formulas. Like you have to understand storytelling. You have to understand like you have your there's like interpretation, sure, of depending on what comic, but like my job is very direct. I draw something that you have to understand, right? In
Yep.
some way or another. You have to understand what the words were told by me to tell you, right?
Hmm.
So I think there's like something very uh interesting about that, and it's like a because I'm not good at anything else, it's like my way of like solving puzzles or like, creating or figuring the world out. So that's what got me hooked. So thanks to Klaus, I like started to really appreciate comics for what it was.
Yeah, so that was, I mean, I know you said you didn't really have like a huge aha moment, but that was kind of what cemented, hey, I'm going to bring this to the next level. This is what I'm going to do. And that's really cool. A lot of times we talk to artists or different creators about kind of what got them into what they're doing now or whatever. And there's so many different answers. There's so many, especially in comics, there's so many people who are storytellers or illustrators or whatever, not necessarily comic book related, but that's what they do. And they kind of broke into comics that way. Of course, with your story, it seems like you were already uh, into comics, already something that an art form that you were very interested in. So I imagine that's really cool. I imagine going the other way might be a little hard. People who illustrate. I can't think of what you exactly call it. People who cartoonists and stuff like that. Whenever they make the leap over to like the page from the screen or something, that's got to be like just so mind blowing. That's got to be a completely different thing to have to worry about there. Tell your story in still images or whatever. But I definitely want to talk. Talking about telling stories. You're writing Disney villains, Maleficent. So this is you writing as well as drawing that book, and that really blew me away because I have to be honest with you. When I read the very first issue, I didn't look at the writing credits or anything. I saw your name up at the top and knew you were illustrating and everything. Um, Reading the second issue and everything, found out you were writing the book as well, and then went back and reread uh, issues 1 and 2 today before this conversation and everything. But is this your first like big writing credit? Is this your first big outing in writing?
Yeah, I would say
Okay,
so. Yeah.
that's so cool. I mean, I can't imagine coming out the gate with something like that because I really like the story that you're telling so far, like a lot. Like it's a really cool story. I'm really into it. I have to for our listeners' sake, for me and Bob's sake, how did that happen? did you go to Dynamite with some ideas? Did Dynamite come to you? And then on top of that, was Dynamite like, hey, can you write and illustrate this thing, or did you ask? Like, what? How did all this happen?
Well, I've worked with Dynamite,
Hmm.
for like smaller things, like covers
Sure.
and stuff like that. And,
Hmm.
the editor I've drawn covers for, and was like, hey, like we have a rapport. So he actually brought it to me. And
Hmm.
so was like, I'm interested in doing like a Disney thing. Don't tell anyone. And I was like, okay, haven't heard like for a long time afterwards. Totally forgot about it. And then he's like, it fell through, but I have another one. How would you like to draw Maleficent and write it? And I'm like, yes. I'm like, absolutely. This is a better one for me, I think. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, I definitely didn't hesitate to say yes on that for sure.
Yeah, and that I again I can't imagine being at a place where, kind of the publisher or someone at the publisher, is coming to you and saying, hey, we want to do this project and we want you on it, and we wanting you like writing and illustrating and all of that. Just mind blowing, just blows my mind. I mean, of course, I know, talking to you guys, talking to creators on comic books and stuff, you guys get used to it, but just to me and Bob, that's so mind blowing. That someone's so interested in your stuff to offer you something like that. So cool. But of course, I can't lie. If I was a publisher, we'd be having the same conversation right now too. So so very
Oh,
cool.
thank
But
you.
yeah,
No,
no.
but like it was hard because it was my first time really, really writing something, especially like
Mhm.
a slightly longer form, right?
Yep.
Because I'm like, well, if it sucks, it's all my fault, right? It's like there is no leeway, there is no buffer, it is
Yep.
all my fault. So I was like, well, the pressure's there, and it's a huge, IP, right?
Yep.
And I was like, well, if I mess it up, whatever, I've done my best and I can move on and say, and because that's true, right? Like
Mhm.
nothing you do is ever gonna be perfect. And you're gonna think about it 10 years later, like as a speck, right?
Mhm.
In your life, right? Not that I'm saying like I don't care about it. It's just, like it is what it is. And if I do good, great. If I don't do great, it's fine. I've learned from it.
Yep.
So I like thinking of that, and also having like multiple therapy talks, right? I'm like, okay, I
Yeah.
can do it. I think I can do it. And then, I was just like, yeah, I'll do it. Let's see what happens, and like if my writing chops are up to par. Although it is easier to write for myself than it is for other artists.
Mhm.
Or at least like, right, I don't have to like make sure it's like perfectly manicured because I know what's happening anyways. It's just like dialogue and like sound effects for the letterers and stuff like that. That's
Mhm.
like the part. But yeah, I mean, and they were very helpful, right? I had to have like the okay from Disney, as all IPs get. You have to get okays.
Yep.
So they like helped me tailor my stuff, and my editor was helping me out with that as well. And so I think it's working out better than I expected, because it was my bar was very low for myself. So I'm like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, well, look, it's a fantastic book. Of course, only having read two issues, uh, who knows? Maybe it'll go super down. I'm just joking. I know it'll be great.
Hopefully
Those
not.
those first
Yeah.
two, yeah, no, those first two issues are great. I really like the story that you're telling. I like the universe that you're playing in and everything. It's a lot of fun. Um, I I guess I'll go. My next question I kind of wanted to ask a little bit later, but I'll go with it now since we're talking Maleficent. And if you can't tell me, that's fine. You give me the silent nod to go to the next question, and we're fine there. But will Prince Gavin or help me with his name, Reynold?
Reynard.
Reynard. Okay, okay. I'm horrible at pronouncing names, so as you'll learn. But will Prince Gavin or Reynard return? Can you answer that? Okay, okay. We're not going into that question right
No,
now.
no, that's not a yes.
Yeah,
It
fair enough.
was a shrug.
Um, yes, yes. Well, completely understood. Let's talk about some of your variant covers then. I would love to talk about some of those. You've done some amazing variant covers. Some of my look, the cover you did for Stillwater, mind
Oh
blowing.
yeah.
I love
Oh,
that cover. That
thank
is
you.
such a great cover. I want that tattooed somewhere on my body. I just don't know
Oh
where
my
yet.
god.
But oh, it's so good. It's just such
Oh
a
my
good
god, thank
cover.
you
But
so
Sound
much. I've
effects.
never heard that before.
yes, well, it will happen somewhere. But yeah, you've done some covers for 007. You've done
Yes.
Cherish. I wanted to, of course, you've done a lot, so I'm not going to sit here and name every single cover you've done, but I'd like to know the process on those. We always love to ask our artist creators how those come about for them. If you're contacted by the publisher, if you send out some artwork and ask to be considered, if someone suggests you, how did I'm sure they, most of them have individual experiences, but we'd love to hear about some of them.
I mean, it all depends on the property that I'm drawing, right?
Hmm.
I want to like the essence of the character. Sometimes I won't get any description of what it's about, right? So I
Uh-huh.
just have to default to a pinup, which that's not really their fault. It's mostly like a time thing, right?
Hmm.
So bluntly, sometimes it has to be a pinup because I don't know what it's about, or like I don't get the information. I actually talked about this in a panel too, and people were
Oh.
like, "Oh, interesting. They didn't know that." And so it's like, well, yeah. Um, and then other times, if I do understand what I'm drawing, I want to like add something. Like I'm one of those like cover artists who wants to make sure that whatever's happening in the story, you get a little bit of in the covers.
Hmm.
Maybe
Yeah,
not
agreed.
all
That
the
doesn't
time.
happen a lot.
Well, because it's hard, right? Because you
Hmm.
have to like really sit down and read what and then think about this entire illustration in like right? Because then like illustration art, right?
Hmm.
Um, so it's a little harder. And so it depends, like, right? Like, oh, I did the Dynamite fairy tales ones, and that
Hmm.
was really fun. It was like a pinup, but like I think I added a little bit of what was supposed to be about without it, like being too boring or anything like that. And that was actually one of my favorite like covers that I've done. Like some of the more fun ones.
Yeah.
So it's like depending on the style, I want to add like an homage to someone else, right? Or like an artist, or uh just like I love like 70s like vintage posters that were like painted. So like I love that kind of stuff. So I want it, so I will emulate that, or it all depends on what it actually is. And then like again, wanted to like be true to the story as possible.
Hmm. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. I think Bob chimed in there with the comment whenever you're saying you're really a big fan of it being something that's in the book, or relevant to the book or whatever. We're the same way. We've had that conversation a few times where we go through our stack of books for the week or whatever, and we're just like, this is a really cool cover, but what the hell does this have to do with the book at all? I Of course, there's a place for all of it out there. Sometimes it's just an interpretation of something or whatever, an abstract thought. But yeah, I agree with you there. I really like it a lot whenever it has something to do with what's in that particular issue. So I'm with you on that. That's super cool. Are there any characters or publishers? This is a weird question again. So,
Oh,
that
by
are
the
like,
way, can I just say that
yeah,
still
please.
cover had nothing to do with anything? I was just like,
Well,
I
yeah.
love, well, it was because it was like for a horror thing, right?
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
kind of got free reign for that cover. And by the way, one of my favorite covers I've done, because
Yeah.
like I get to do whatever I want. I added like symbolism and kind of like, like the background is like blood vessels from like the heart, so
Yep.
it's like the undying thing. And I added like interpretive like imagery in that was fun. So had something to like, what the story is about, but
Yep.
I wanted it to be like weird, right?
Hmm.
Because it's a weird concept, so I wanted it to
Oh
just
yeah.
like be visually as weird as possible, I guess.
It works though. One of my favorite things of all time is the Twilight Zone, and Stillwater is an episode of Twilight Zone, like expanded
Yeah,
out. That's all. Like
exactly.
it,
Yeah.
it, it works so wonderfully, and I get what you're saying. I mean, you're right. That's not taken from the book at all in any way whatsoever, but it still invokes something, some kind of feel in the book or whatever. It fits perfectly, and it is such a wonderful piece. So yeah, I'm with you. I'd be very very proud of that. Very, of course, you got to put your art on the cover of Chip Zdarsky book, and that's just super cool too. So yeah, I can just imagine how awesome that is. But yeah, the question was, are there any characters or publishers that would just be a hard no for you? Say, you know, I can't think of a great example, but maybe like Marvel calls you up and they say, Sue, we need you to do a Punisher series, and you're just like, I'm not doing that one. Is there anything that's off the table for you? If so, why? Or if not, then awesome.
So that's an interesting question because the modest side of me with the low self-esteem says I don't ever want to touch anything that might destroy me, right? Like
Sure.
a lot of times I'm like, I don't think I'm capable of drawing this character that'll make the fans happy enough. And then
Hmm.
I will like, by the way, I don't really care what anyone says about my stuff.
Uh-huh.
When I say that, I mean it. Like, I'm way harder on myself than any like online comic could ever be. That
Yeah.
it actually does not affect me because I'm like, trust me, I've said worse about myself. So it's not that I'm gonna get hate. It's
Hmm.
that like I don't want to disappoint the fans because it's like,
Hmm.
but that being said, if an editor comes to me and wants me to draw something, my first reaction is like, did you not have time? Did anyone else say no? Is that why you're asking me? Right? Because like, oh, too good to be true. Who said no? Right? So that's like the modest side. But then if they come to me, right, and I think this is good for anyone in real life, right? Like if someone thinks you're capable of doing something, at
Hmm.
some point in your life you have to say, okay, maybe I am. Or like
Uh-huh.
if it sucks, I've tried it and I'll never do it again, or I've tried it and I'll get better, right?
Hmm.
Um, so many of our favorite artists were not that great when they first did that. Let's be real. Like if you
Yeah,
go back to
absolutely.
like the 80s stuff, like what I'm talking about. And they're
Yeah.
great. They're like objectively great artists. It just takes time to do it, right? Um, like when I did Ruby, I was like really like stressed over drawing Batman, and he's only in for like a few pages. But I was like,
Hmm.
it's the worst Batman in the world. They're gonna hate me. In the end, no one really cares, right?
Hmm.
Because it's not a Batman book. Um, but it's taught me how to draw him, and so like if knock on wood ever I get to draw him again, then I'll be better prepared of like how I want to do it. Um, so unless it's like a character I don't agree with or like a property I
Hmm.
don't agree with morally, um, I don't know if I'll say no unless I'm really busy. Like, why not? Like, I want to try as much as I can while like my
Hmm.
hands are still working,
Yep.
in this industry, and like, I want to have fun, right? So I would have said like actually like a few months ago, like no, I would never want to draw something, but like no, if someone's like saying you're capable, especially an editor and especially a publisher is going to pay you, if they're saying you're like, yeah, I think you do a fine job, then like maybe you should believe them. So like
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, okay, maybe I'll try, you know, see what happens,
Yeah.
even if
I
it
think.
sucks.
Well, I can relate with you there. I've definitely had a lot of times in my life where I've been presented with something. Someone's like, "Hey, can you do this for me?" Whatever. I play music, so I play drums. So a
Oh,
lot of
that's
people have
cool.
come. Yeah, thank you. A lot of people have come in the past, and say, "Hey, I need you to fill in for this band or for our drummer's out. Can you fill in on this tour or whatever?" And then I'm like, oh God, I can't play as well as that guy, but and then I'm like, but I hear you. It's like, look, you asked. I know I can do it. Whatever. I'm just gonna go out and do it, and it ends up being great. So,
Exactly. They're
so
not
yeah.
asking you to play that person. Like,
Hmm.
right? It's like, hey, can you be like Greg Capullo? I'm like, absolutely not,
No,
right? It's
no, I
just
can't.
they're asking me to draw my version
Hmm.
of this thing, right?
Yeah.
And so like they're not stupid. They know that
Hmm.
I can't draw like Greg Capullo or whatever,
Yeah.
but they know that I can draw like myself, and myself is like good at the moment, right? So like, with the drums, you're good at the moment. Why not, right?
Yep.
They could have
Hmm.
asked someone else.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of what you have to tell yourself. And I would like to just interject, or maybe not interject. I guess we're past the point of interjection, but I would like to come in and say, the Ruby that you're talking about, that DC versus Ruby is the title, right?
Yes.
Okay, you're
DC DC Ruby with the slash.
Oh yeah, DC
Yeah, I
slash
know.
Ruby.
It's
That's right. That's right. Yeah, yeah. So that book is amazing, and your work on it, at least
Oh my
the
God, thank you
God,
so
yeah,
much.
your Batman is wonderful. So you have absolutely nothing to worry about in that field,
No,
and
my gosh.
it is.
Now
And
you're just being nice. Okay, now I know you're
no,
lying. It's fine.
no, I'm not lying at all. And I promise you, at some point, someone's coming back. Hey, you know that Batman you did? Can we get that on a detective or a Batman comic?
Oh my
So
God.
mark my words, it
Thank you
will
so
happen.
much.
But
No, I
no,
really appreciate it. I don't think a lot of people have read that book, so I don't really get a lot of feedback, so I do appreciate it.
yeah, no, I do like that book. I think what now we're kind of in the second volume of it. There was one before, and I can't remember exactly what the first volume was called. It might have been DC versus Ruby, or it was Ruby
Yeah, I
something. But
think it
yeah,
was DC versus
that might
Ruby,
be why it's
right?
stuck in my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, but
Or
yeah,
Justice League Ruby or something like
yeah,
that.
something like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
such a cool book. I really like that book a lot, and I like your work on it. It's very good. So
Thank you. I really
yeah, of
appreciate
course.
that.
So an honest statement there, not just trying to be nice at all. But okay, I want to switch over to art again. We're going to talk about. We asked this question last week. We saw that last week whenever Marvel's Secret Invasion came out, that there was
Mm.
a big controversy there with the AI generated
Mm.
art being used in the opening credits.
Mm. Mhm.
Um, yeah. We talked to Raphael Albuquerque last week, so we were asking Raphael, what he thought if he saw that as like a tool for innovation, if he's down on the whole thing. A lot of artists see it as a threat.
What did he say?
Kind of, he was like, "Look, I I would embrace it. I would use it as a tool, but you can't take out the human element. And of course, we agreed with him. When we want to see an Albuquerque, a Raphael Albuquerque piece, that's what we want. A computer can't do that. That's his thing. When we want to see a Soo Lee piece, like a computer cannot replicate that. It can't replicate the feel. You're a very unique artist. You do things in your own way, much like a lot of my favorite artists do. A lot of Bob's favorite artists. We're talking Raphael Albuquerque, Bill Sienkiewicz. People of this level who just aren't that typical house style. Who do their own thing. So there's a lot of human element in that. It's not something easily replicated. So yeah, I'd just love to hear what you think about AI generated art, coming into something as huge as a as an MCU piece.
So I actually, Sweeney and I did an episode with our friend Dave Stokes about AI art. We
Hmm.
break down like what it means morally, economically, what
Hmm.
it means to the entire art industry, and like the future of it. So if you're interested, I'm just plugging it in because
Yeah.
we like go in like it's feeling slash the statistics, right? So like we kind of like go in depth about like what it is, and there was a lot of things he told me about that I didn't realize, so it was like a learning thing.
Hmm.
um so if you want to like hear very in depth, I suggest you go check out how I really feel about AI art. um but so the abridged version is absolutely AI is going to take everything over. There's no
Hmm.
doubt about it. It cannot be stopped. Once I saw the secret invasion thing, I was like, yeah, it's over. It's you've put the nail in the coffin. They specifically told him not to read any secret invasion books. So
Hmm.
not only are you just using property as like a capitalistic way to like make things for yourself, right?
Yep.
And
Hmm.
I know a lot of people don't like hearing that, but like let's be real, it's true. I love making money too, but honest.
Yep.
And they just want to make money off of something, and you're not. And okay, AI aside, you're not even reading the comics, so you don't
Hmm.
even know what it's about, right?
Yep.
You're just like, well, this is fun. I'm just gonna write fanfic. Basically, is what they're doing, and it's like it's lame. It's very lame, and
Hmm.
also so like back to it's like lame, and also like I don't agree with AI art, but I understand it will take over our lives in all aspects. Like it will be the artists first, and then it will inevitably go to everything else, and we can't stop
Hmm.
it. That's the cold hard truth.
Yeah.
Um, the terms of embracing it, not now. there's no laws to
Hmm.
protect us. If there were laws and regulations, and if people took this seriously, and there was ways to prevent stealing, and it's all about consent, right?
Hmm.
So if there were ways to build that and be regulated, sure, at some point we are all going to embrace it, right? Every artist is going to use it. But right now, because it's unethical, there's no limits to what it can do, there's no consent, there's no regulation. I cannot abide by it right now. You see, like, so because right now it's not, there's no protection, then we
Hmm.
can't combat it yet. So if
Yep.
there's nothing to combat it, no, then it's not even fair. I'm not even going to entertain it.
Yeah, I can absolutely agree with that. It's just great to hear, a perspective from somebody who actually works in the industry. Of course, I know whenever this whole thing, started, and this is different. It's not like AI generated art and deep fakes are exactly, in the same ballpark or whatever. But when that was first coming out, I was like, oh my God, anybody could just take you, or take somebody doing something bad, superimpose your face over it. It looks
Oh
like this,
yeah, it's
and
awful.
I mean, and again, with the no, there's nothing stopping anybody from doing anything. There's nothing.
Exactly.
Uh,
That's the problem.
yeah, it's
There's nothing to
terrifying.
stop. Right. There's no cap to what can happen. Right. And
Hmm.
so we need that. If we want to take this as seriously as possible, then you
Hmm.
have to take serious measures, right? And make it equal.
Hmm.
And one day AI art is going to make a perfect version of my art. I don't doubt it.
Hmm.
That's just how it's programmed to be. Because there's,
Hmm.
again, people have malicious intent. So, why not? They will take my style and like replace me. Um, but I also have mentioned this in my podcast. It's like, but the difference is that like comics are interesting, right? Because we're not celebrities in any shape or form, like not at all. Not We do not even get paid close to it, right? But there's like, we are so close to fans that like a lot of like art collectors love certain artists because of who they are, right? So they're like attracted to not only the art but the person and the personality behind it. So not only are you like getting like good art, you're getting like a piece of the person that you enjoy, right? So you're like, it's a memorabilia, right?
Hmm.
So I think like that's irreplaceable. I think that'll always be irreplaceable. So my advice to other artists is you know be like be like pay attention to your fans, right? Like
Hmm.
unfortunately social, like I'm so bad at social media, but like be present, right? You got to have like personality. You got to be, it's sad to say, but you have to kind of like zhuzh up your yourself to make sure that you're not only relevant but also like you know you're someone that people want to like stay in touch with,
Hmm.
and I think that adds a lot of value to the art that you get.
Yeah, it's almost like you got to sell a whole package. You have to be this personality along with the art and kind of present the entire thing. So yeah, that's. Uh, I think that when we talked to Raphael about it, it wasn't that, he said he could potentially see it as a tool. He could potentially embrace it,
Yeah, I can
but
see that.
yeah, when I kind of led with, and again, this is from an ignorant person who can't draw a straight line, so you'll have to excuse my ignorance. But I almost equated it at first to like hand drawing versus digital, use the Photoshop
Oh,
coming into
not at
place and
all.
stuff. Yeah, and that's what he said too.
Not
He
at all.
I kind of got on that, and he went, "Hold on a second, I'm going to take you back because that's not the same thing." And I was like,
Yeah,
"Okay, okay, understood." But yeah, again, coming from the ignorant side that Bob and I do, that's why we ask these questions, to make sure that we understand, to make sure that our listeners out there understand, and of course, we have a base of listeners who are up and coming comic book creators, and they might not understand certain things the
that's
same way that you guys
actually,
do. So.
yeah, no, that's actually a great point, because it's like two things is one, there's a lot of arts to be, right? When I'm old
Mhm.
and dying and like my art is irrelevant as shit, like someone else is going to replace me. But what about them, right? Like I can money and say screw it, I've made
Mhm.
my money, I've made my impact, and I'm gone, right? I
Mhm.
could say that, but I really like this industry,
Yeah.
like I really believe in what I'm doing. Um, I don't want to leave the kids in dust. I don't want to leave like no room for any like real artists to come in and like, be in the spotlight. That's
Mhm.
fair for them. And like I judge people a little bit when you're like very well to do and you're comfortable, in your position. It's like that's great, but like then why are you doing this? Right? If you
Uh-huh.
don't have true love for what you're doing, then why, right? You could do
Mhm.
anything else and make a lot of money, right? It's like I genuinely want this industry to get better. I don't want it to, go backwards. Like comics broke me hashtag. Like
Yeah.
there's so many problems already. We don't need more,
No.
you know? And then also like I wish like I am the unfortunately the minority. Like I am unfortunately one in like a sea of people who are pro AI, right?
Mhm.
So it's increasingly hard to like and I get angry. My immediate reaction is like to get angry, but then it's like we need to educate people on what this is really about,
Yeah,
right?
well, we
But
should.
then
Yeah, absolutely.
when things like the secret invasion thing comes out,
Mhm.
that's it. It's
Yeah.
like it's reached an incredible amount of people, right? It's like, and then people look at that and they're like, oh, that's AI art. And the only thing they'll think is like, oh, that's cool. This is the
Mhm.
future of art. That's
Yep.
it. They won't think of anything else because now we've gone back and you made it harder for us when you legitimize something like that. It's harder to like try to catch up to like a big industry pushing for
Mhm.
that. So
Mhm.
it's unfortunately hard, but like I think it's good that I think you'd need to listen to like people who are anti and see like why we're
Yeah.
really against it.
Yeah, of course. See that viewpoint and have it expressed and then open your eyes a little bit to it. How did you feel, and this, might open a door, I don't know, but uh, knowing that it was that Marvel Studios, that they were the ones that did it. I think that if it were, I don't know, like a small like TV show that had nothing to do with comics on like MTV or something like that, if that exists, but it wouldn't be as huge of a deal to us probably, or as huge of a slap in the face to creators, that AI art was used or something, but how does it feel, knowing that you're a creator, knowing that that's most likely where your livelihood comes from and stuff like that, that Marvel, somebody who is a huge industry, paying creators and uh, hiring artists and writers and all of that, turned to AI. It just, I can't imagine.
Well, Marvel Studios for the movies is kind
Hmm.
of separate, is
Yeah,
actually separated from the comics
sure.
division. So they don't, I mean, they, help each other with like information and stuff like that, obviously
Hmm.
with property, but
Yeah.
they're not involved with the comic side, nor is
Hmm.
the comic side involved with the studios. But so I'm not talking about comics, I'm not
Hmm.
talking about that side. But without being too political, like it's a business.
Yeah.
It's a big business.
Yep.
If you read between what I'm saying is like that should be it, right? Like why else do
Mhm.
you think they're doing it?
Yeah.
It's just money, right? It's just easy
Yeah.
money.
Yeah, whatever you can do to, and again, without making anything too political, but yeah, whatever you can do to generate the most
I'm
profit without,
also
spending.
sure because the way AI art looks is kind of ugly. I'm
Yeah.
assuming that's kind of why they use that style too,
Hmm.
right? They're embracing like the ugliness,
Hmm.
and saying that they completely like missed the idea of like what this property is.
Hmm.
So, again, he didn't even read the comics, so it doesn't even matter. Everything that, you could argue, just remember that. He
Hmm.
doesn't even know what this story is going to be about,
Yeah.
right? So it doesn't even matter, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Like for
just
them, it matters for us, but
sure.
not them, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it matters for the audience out there watching and all of that. But yeah. Um let's go into some of your projects. Of course, right now you're working heavily with Dynamite, and obviously spending what I imagine is probably a good amount of time illustrating and writing Maleficent. So, the Disney villains Maleficent book. Do you have you decided what your next project's going to be? Is there anything that you're working on alongside Maleficent?
Yes,
Anything you
a
can
lot.
talk about? Yeah.
um, no, but I know it's always like that.
Oh,
It's
you're fine.
always
You're
like,
fine.
yeah, it's always like I'm working on a bunch of stuff, but I can't say until like next year or like, or
Hmm.
months down the line.
Yep.
But yeah, I am working on way too much right now, currently. Yeah.
That's all right. Staying busy is good. I know.
Well, I
Yeah.
have no social life, so if that makes you feel any better, I am a loser. There you
Um,
go.
I can't imagine at all. But yeah. Is there? Uh, I'd love to know, whenever you did the book for, and I'm trying to remember the publisher now. I can't remember if it was Dark Horse or not, but the project that you did, the graphic novel project,
Carmilla the
yes,
first
Carmilla
vampire.
the First
Okay.
Vampire. How did you get into that project? Was that something that you
Um,
collaborated on? Was that something, again, that was like kind of offered to you? Did you?
yeah, I talked to Amy a long time ago, and
Hmm.
I guess I forgot that I asked her, if there's anything that she wanted to work with me on. No, because like we're so busy, we're not
Yeah, sure,
always all
sure,
in
yeah.
contact, right?
Hmm.
So I totally forgot to mention it, and then very much years later,
Hmm.
Karen Berger just emailed me and was like, "Hey, I have a project. Do you want to work on it?" And so I was like, "Oh, okay." And but she's also like, she knew my agent,
Hmm.
and my agent's husband, and like they were like all affiliated with DC back or like with Vertigo. And so it was like they knew. I guess they knew of me. My name was on the roster, like who could draw this project.
Hmm.
And when Karen came to me, I was like, yes. Like I've always wanted to work for Vertigo. And I was like, I've lost my chance forever. Like I'll never
Yeah,
get that back.
that's gone.
And so, right. So like, when Karen, I mean, Karen is Vertigo, right?
Hmm.
So I was like, yeah, this is it. This is like literally Vertigo, my version of Vertigo. So
Hmm.
I had to say yes to it.
Yeah, and I can't even imagine anybody else's style meshing like with that story.
Oh,
Like
thank you.
it seems synonymous with your work. It's a really good representation, a visual representation that you create with the story there. It's just a wonderful piece. To anybody, that came out, what, I think at the beginning of this year, like towards.
Yeah, I keep forgetting it's not last year. I'm losing
Yeah,
time
I know.
slowly.
Yeah, it's going fast. But yeah, that if for some reason that slipped it under anybody's radar, you didn't check it out, Bob, I don't know if you've checked it out yet or not. Just such a really, really cool book, a wonderful book. I'm really partial to vampire stories already, but this one's cool, and Sue's art just really shines throughout the book, so it's really awesome. I definitely
Thank you
suggest
so
everybody
much.
check that out. Yeah, thank you for creating that. It's really cool.
I
uh
appreciate it.
yeah. So here's a couple more questions.
Sure.
Maybe a little off topic,
Love it.
from the specific books or whatever. But and again, this is probably stuff you've discussed a lot in your podcast. So you don't have to elaborate as much here. Elaborate as little or as much as you want to. Again, everybody go check out Sue's podcast, Spill Your Guts. It's freaking amazing. And you can hear this, a lot of what we're going to be talking about here, elaborated a little bit more or a lot more on in her own podcast. But tell some of our listeners what some of the biggest challenges have been for you, being a woman and a person of color breaking into comics.
Um, Sometimes I think about that, and again, with the Sway episode, I've talked about it,
Yes.
and it's hard to say, right? Because like, there's a part of me that like makes like I'm conditioned to be like, no, everything is fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like you have to be there, you can't complain or else
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna like, lose it, right? Like everyone's gonna be like, you're the complaining one, nobody wants to work with you, right?
Uh-huh.
But
Sure.
I mean, all I've known is like if I just work hard and fast enough and good enough, and if I'm polite, like I will continue to get jobs, right?
Hmm.
So, and I've done that, I think, right? So I feel like I've done a lot of projects. It may not be a lot of projects a lot of people know, but it's with a lot of publishers. Like I've worked
Uh-huh.
with a lot of people, and people are always surprised by it because again, it's not anything that's like like a big DC book or anything like that, right? So it's a little harder to um, get some of them recognized, and I wondered like and again I understand that like my art was shit back then, and I'm only getting better, right? And you can only get better, so
Hmm.
I'm understanding that now. I'm like, yes, I totally can see like what it feels like to be like I'm working hard, but I don't know if I'm there yet, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I don't think I have a problem, or like I don't think it hinders me anyway, but um there are things that like if you read the comics broke me thing,
Hmm.
um I've realized some stuff,
Yeah.
with like I don't know if it's because of like my gender, because like statistically, and again, I know people are going to hate this, but statistically women do get paid less in every field than a man does.
Yeah, I
And
mean, look,
in
it's just a
every
fact. I mean,
industry.
they can hate it if they want, then do something to change it,
No, but it's
because it's yeah,
statistically true.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
love it or hate
absolutely,
it, it's the
yeah,
truth.
hmm,
And I've discovered that for myself. And then I was like, hmm, like I I get hired by a lot of people, and people have a lot of faith in me, which I'm like very happy about. But like where but I wondered always like if I was like not a woman, or if I was not an Asian woman,
hmm,
um, am I being tokenized? Right? Some is one of the questions. Am I just being tokenized, or people actually enjoy my talent, right? Or am I like the thing that they need, you know, to look better, right? Because
hmm,
that's a real question.
yep,
Um, and then also like, yeah, but if I was like a cool white dude, would
hmm,
I get more ins with a lot more crowd? Like would people like me more? You know
hmm,
what I mean? It's like I feel like I have to be polite. I have to be more professional. I have to look a certain way when I'm at a convention.
hmm,
But
hmm,
that's like every woman. You can talk to almost every woman, and they'll be like, "Yeah, we want to look good because we don't want to be judged,
yep,
right?"
hmm,
Because I can't just go out. I'm gonna be very honest. I can't go out without makeup or like just a t-shirt, and like not someone thinking I look sloppy, right?
yep,
So that is like a component, but also like I don't want to say it holds me back, because I don't think anything holds me back. Like
hmm,
I do the work, and like people hire all the time. I'm very blessed, actually. Like a
hmm,
lot of people would be very like envious of my position, and I understand that, right? But again, a part of me is like, well, because I worked very hard for it,
yep,
um but there are times where like I'm very grateful for everything that I've done, and I truly mean that. But sometimes in the back of my head I wonder, yeah, if I was like, yeah, would I be not intimidating, but like, would I be less unassuming if I was just like a cool white dude, right? Like,
hmm,
I was just like a bro, like who draws good, and everyone wants to hang out with them, right? It's just like
hmm,
just chill, just one of the guys. And I think about that sometimes, like, because I don't know, am I if I ask for more time, am I just being like complicated, right?
hmm,
If I like express dissatisfaction or anger, am I just being like an angry like woman,
hmm,
or like what I mean? So like there are things that I think about and like adjust accordingly.
yep,
um but like as I get older, I kind of don't care about that anymore.
hmm,
So there's a lot of things I think about, and I think this is just true for every like person of color in the world, in any industry. It's just like we have that in the back of our heads, but then like you have to like make sure you know things happen or don't happen. So like
hmm,
it's always in the back of our heads, but I don't want to say that it's like inhibiting me you
yep.
know I do have to advocate for like things a little harder sometimes, but it just could be that like I'm not that great. Like that could be true too. I'm not discounting that. So I don't know. That's I think it's true for every person of color, and it's just not me.
Hmm.
But I am very lucky, I think, in this industry.
Yeah, and like I said, again, your art really speaks for itself. You're truly a talented creator. You've got a very unique style. That's something that I, I hate to sound like a broken record, but I'll repeat over and over again. That's really something that I seek out whenever I'm looking for, what I enjoy in comic book art, sequential art, and all of that. Just really that unique spin, that personalization that I can look at a piece and say, that is by Soo Lee. I really appreciate that. So your work just again, it stands on its own. It's very outstanding. I can't imagine anybody not ever wanting to work with you or hire you. But
Oh, thank you.
but yeah, of course. But again, that's just what I see there, and I don't have to deal with the same challenges that you do or anything whenever looking for work there. So uh, I would love to ask, what would you say? And again, if you don't have much of an answer, that's fine. But you've been superb at being able to come up with all of these answers off the top of your head. So I'm sure you'll be great here too. But what would you say to all of the young girls listening, who possibly are people of color, or different backgrounds, who are looking to break into the business? Do you have any advice for them? If so, what would you say?
I mean, I'm gonna say it is tough. It is
Mhm.
tougher, and unfortunately, that's just the world.
Yep.
You will have a little bit of a hard time breaking through, to be seen.
Mhm.
Um, but you have to like. But that being said, this is such like this is a tough thing
Yeah.
because it's not very accepted. But like, so I have immigrant family members, and a lot of like
Mhm.
the immigrant families are mostly like keep your head down and do the work.
Yep.
Just like do
Mhm.
good work. And even though like yes, I mean I think you should definitely be yourself, right? There's and you may not be the best. I was bad when I first started out. You will get better, but you
Mhm.
have to understand when you're being bad or when you're not good, and then needing to learn, right?
Mhm.
Like, but that's any industry. I think if you don't have the drive to be better, you're just not going to get better. And once you think that you're good, it's over for you, right? Because there's nothing to achieve at that, right? And
Mhm.
it's like, and I don't mean like, oh, I think it looks good versus like, no, I'm very good. Like, that's
Yep.
it. I don't need. So, like, understand when there needs to be tweaking in your work, right? And understand that you're gonna get better. You think your stuff is good now? Trust me, in like 10 years, it's like phenomenal. You're not even gonna like. You're gonna look at what you did, just be like, wow, that was garbage, right? So, understanding that, and then like I want to say like right because I'm like not young, so like my old school mentality is like you got to be better, you got to just got to be better, and you got to do better, you got to be funnier or whatever, right? But and with some truth to that, but like you got to be yourself.
Yep.
There's like there's something for everyone, right? You may not be the best artist right now, this is speaking for myself too, like, but somebody's gonna like whatever you do no matter what you do. That corny quote, like, you may be the juiciest peach in all the farm, and there's still someone who doesn't like peaches, right?
Yep. Mhm.
It's the same. You can't please everyone. So like going into this industry because it's so small, it's
Mhm.
such like a saturated industry. If you think you're gonna be like the next like, Bill Sienkiewicz, it probably is not gonna happen,
Mhm.
or at least right away. But you can keep going where you want to go, like
Mhm.
find your path, keep doing that, draw what you want to draw, just do the best drawing of what you want. Yeah,
Mhm.
it- you got to learn, and then like, so don't worry about being the best, just doing the best you can. And like you never know where you end up.
Mhm.
If you hate what you're doing, it's not going to work out. But
Yep.
if you love what you're doing, then like keep doing it, and you got to just suffer a little bit through that, like, all the anxiety, and everyone has it, I think, no matter what, right?
Yeah.
um
Whether they're telling you they do or not, they do.
right, we all do. I mean, some people are magic and they just like are not, and I don't understand that mentality. But it is going to be tough for you because of the extra hurdles you have to go through, right? And everyone starts, with the exception of a few, everyone starts out mediocre. There,
Hmm.
so just aim to get better for yourself. You can't be like, I'm gonna have like 600,000 followers. I'm gonna be like the next, like, I'm not gonna make the next year one, because who knows? It may not be even for like 20, 30 years, right?
Hmm.
But make sure you're serving yourself first, and like you're doing the best you can right now, and don't be hyper inflated with your ego. I think that's a lot of people's problems as well.
Yeah, that's always very important. Something that a lot of people forget, the ego. You have to humble yourself enough to put yourself out there. A lot of people do forget that, and I would like to, just to piggyback on what you were saying a little bit. I agree with everything that you're saying. I think that that was really well put. I would like to say, to anybody out there listening right now, if you're an aspiring, creator, artist, writer, editor, letterer, whatever, colorist. I remember Peach Momoko first coming out, and I mean, I
She's a
fell in love with her art.
workhorse.
Yeah, yeah, she is. But I thought this is the coolest perspective I've ever seen in comic books. This is so unique. I
Hmm.
really, really like this. And my usual pool of comic book friends, Bob excluded because Bob is very open. But we're just kind of like, this is, what is this? This isn't my thing. I don't want to see Daredevil like that. I don't want to see Batman like that. That's not how they look. Whatever. And I mean, Peach Momoko is the artist of the year. I mean, Peach Momoko's
Yeah.
name is everywhere. She's amazing. She's doing so much stuff, and she's doing such cool, unique stuff as well. And she brings her talent to the game. She's not changing that for anybody. She's not compromising it. This is
Yes.
what she does, and she does it with those characters that you may see in a very, typical house style usually, but that's not what she does. She's just an amazing artist, as well as you, with very unique art. And yeah, you get it out there, and you know art isn't for everybody. Sometimes you've got stuff that appeals to certain people, it doesn't appeal to others or whatever. But she found her footing, you found your footing, people like Tyler Crook found their footing. So there's just, you got to do what you do, and do it good, and just get it out there. So yeah, I completely agree with your statement, and I think you put it very, very well. So I appreciate you giving some advice to any young creators out there,
Thank you.
who are up and
Also,
coming.
just make sure, like, you're not gonna do everything in the checklist of like be really good, be like really fast, be really polite. You can do two or three, and that's
Hmm.
good enough for now.
Yep.
Like, just get the work done on time and be nice. That's it.
Yep.
And then they'll just keep hiring you. If you're reliable, they'll just keep hiring you.
Yeah. Yeah. Get your foot in the door, and then just keep it going.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yes.
very, very cool. Well, I think we've taken a good amount of your time. We've taken an hour now, so we'll go ahead and close up. But in closing, I do just want to ask some of my silly little questions here. So feel free to, if you've got answers, and if you don't, that's fine too. But
Awesome.
what have you been watching this past week? What have you been listening to, and what have you been reading?
So I binge a lot of movies and TVs while I work.
Uh-huh.
I actually find movies and TVs to be inspiration. Like, I love cinematography. I'm kind of
Yes.
like, ooh, every frame is a painting, kind of like, let's break that. Because like I find it very helpful for when I'm drawing panels, right? Like,
Hmm.
what's the best angle? What's um so what have I been watching? A lot. I just finished The English on Prime. I don't know if you know what that is. It's like
I haven't
a
heard of it.
western. It's a
Hmm.
western period romance. It's
Oh, cool.
very, it's like it hits all, like it hits all my notes. It's like, I love period pieces. I love westerns. Like,
Hmm.
love cowboys. Like I love India. Like I love the whole Western genre.
Hmm.
And it's like the romance, like the unrequited love romance thing. It's just like, oh my God. I cried at the last episode.
It's
Um,
Western Gone with the Wind.
it is. It was so it's okay, by the way, like yes, it's very funny and it's like really good. It's actually incredibly beautifully shot. It's like I haven't seen a western this beautiful in a while, and it's like quite literally every frame is a painting. It is
Wow.
phenomenal to look at. I was like, I gotta watch this again when I'm not working because it's beautiful. Like the acting is great and stuff too, but it's visually very pleasing. Um, Finished that and cried. um, I finished and then all of like yesterday, 2 days, I binged Ted Lasso because I was like, I need something fun to watch because I got really depressed after that. Because like I watched the English, I finished Better Call Saul, and I got like really sad, and I was like, oh, and then I finished Westworld,
Oh
and so it
wow.
was like a whole like
Okay, yeah. So
sad
yeah,
overload.
you just keep knocking yourself down.
Yeah. And then so I watched Ted Lasso to like, it's not like my favorite show, but it was like
Hmm.
it's easy watch.
Yeah, a palate cleanser.
Yeah, and then like what I listened to, by the way, I have to get back to the season 2 of Righteous Gemstones. I've been like really excited about it. I love
Wow.
that show. Um, and I've been listening to just like I have like it's very eclectic. Like I listen to a lot of 70s music. Like I
Mhm.
love soul and disco music, but
Oh yeah,
like
me too.
yeah, no, I love that genre. So it's
Hmm.
like a mix of that and like very contemporary. I'm talking about things that like Zoomers listen to because it's fun and it's easy to
Hmm.
listen to while you're working. I don't discriminate with music. It's just whatever's good on Spotify. I'll just like rotate it.
Hmm.
And then the last question,
Oh, what have you been reading, if anything, comics or books or anything like
I can't read anything yet.
that?
I don't have the time to sit
Hmm.
and read. Like
Yeah.
I work like 16 hours a day and I almost
Wow.
never take a day off. So it's like, yeah, so that's why like watching something is
Hmm.
easier because like I have two screens and I'm just like bouncing my eyes around or just like listening to the story.
Hmm.
Um, so unfortunately I don't really have time to read a lot of stuff, which is
Yeah.
so bad because I need to keep up with what's happening.
No, completely understood. So, in closing, please, Sue, plug everything you have. Again,
Oh boy.
everybody, you better be out there listening to Spill Your Guts because it's so amazing. But
Oh, thank you.
so you guys know about that, and of course, we know that you're currently working on Disney Villains Maleficent over at Dynamite. But where can people find you? Where can we keep up with you?
You can follow me on Twitter. It's Soo D Lee.
Mhm.
On Instagram is Soo Lee Draws. On Twitch, which I rarely go to, is Soo Lee Draws, and my website is Soo Lee Draws.
Yes,
And then
everybody,
Spill Your
make sure you
Guts.
check those out. Yes, yes. Please make sure you check that out. Check all of those out. Soo Lee, it was so amazing talking to you. I really, really appreciate you taking the time from your day to talk to me and Bob and our audience here at the All New, All Different #1 Comics podcast. It's just been awesome hearing your perspective on things, and we greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much, and sorry for like ranting at points, but I really
That's
appreciate
what
you
we
guys
want you
having
here for. So, yes, please rant. Yeah, absolute pleasure. You're invited back anytime. Thank you so much,
me. Would love
Sue.
to. Yeah, thank you so much. This is fun.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, keep it up. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You guys too. And thanks for all the support to anyone listening.